If correcting your team makes you sound harsher than you intend, the problem is usually not the correction itself. It's how the correction is delivered. A lot of leaders either wait too long and let frustration build, or they correct too softly and the message never lands. Then later, when they finally say something clearly, it comes out sharper than they meant. A better correction is much simpler. You want three parts: name, impact, and reset. That is the structure. Say what the issue is. Say why it matters. Then say what needs to happen now. If you do that well, you can correct people clearly without sounding harsh. So, let's make this practical. The first part is name. This is where you identify the issue directly. Not everything that has gone wrong, not the whole pattern across the last 3 months, just the specific thing that needs to be addressed now. A useful question to ask yourself here is, what exactly am I correcting? Another good question is, can I say the issue in one sentence without adding emotion? That matters because a lot of leaders start correcting from frustration instead of clarity. They lead with tone, disappointment, pressure. And when that happens, the message starts sounding personal. So, in this first part, your job is to name the issue clearly. That can sound like, this was sent later than expected, or the update was not clear enough for the client, or we moved forward before alignment was in place. That is stronger than starting with something like, I'm frustrated because this keeps happening. The issue should come first. Now, the second part is impact. This is where you explain why the issue matters. And this part matters because correction sounds stronger when people understand the consequence. Not because you're trying to make the issue sound bigger, but because correction at work should connect to outcomes. A good question to ask yourself here is, why does this issue matter to the team, the work, or the client? Another useful one is, what problem did this create? That keeps the correction grounded. Because if you correct people without explaining impact, it can sound like preference. But when you explain the consequence, it sounds more legitimate and easier to respect. So this part can sound like, that created confusion about next steps. Or, that delayed the handoff to the next team. Or, that made the decision look less settled than it was. Now, the correction has a business reason behind it. That makes it easier to hear. The third part is reset. That is where you say what needs to happen now. And this is important because correction should not end with the problem. It should point people back toward the standard. A good question to ask yourself here is, what needs to change going forward? Or, what do I need this person or team to do differently next time? That keeps the correction useful. Because strong leadership correction is not only about pointing out what was wrong, it's about restoring clarity. So this part can sound like, going forward, I need that update sent before the meeting starts. Or, next time, bring the concern up before the message goes to the client. Or, from here, I want alignment confirmed before anyone moves ahead. That gives the correction direction. So when you put the three parts together, it becomes much easier to lead these moments well. Name what the issue is, impact why it matters, reset what needs to happen now. That is the structure. And it works because it keeps away from two common mistakes. The first is emotional buildup. That is when the correction starts sounding heavier than the issue itself. The second is vague softness. That is when the leader hints at the problem but never really corrects it. You want the middle, clear and steady. For example, the updates went out before the team was aligned. That created confusion about direction. Going forward, I need alignment confirmed before the message is sent. That works because the message is easy to follow. It is direct, but it is not harsh. Another mistake leaders make is adding too much extra language around the correction because they feel uncomfortable. So they keep cushioning, apologizing, explaining that they're not upset, not blaming, not trying to be difficult. That usually weakens the message. You do not need to over-defend a fair correction. You need to make it clear. Then stop once the point is complete. That is a much stronger rhythm. Now, this matters even more when the person is good overall, because that is when leaders often avoid being direct. They think, this person is valuable. This is unusual. I do not want to discourage them. And that is understandable. But good people still need clear correction. In fact, strong people usually respect clarity more than vagueness. So you don't need to choose between being kind and being direct. You need to connect the correction to the work and deliver it cleanly. For example, this part of the handoff was not clear enough for the receiving team. That created a necessary back and forth. Next time, I need the ownership and timing stated more directly. That is respectful, but it still corrects the issue. So, if you want a practical way to correct your team without sounding harsh, ask yourself 3 questions. What exactly am I correcting? Why does it matter? What needs to happen differently now? Then, check 4 things before you speak. Did I name the issue clearly? Did I connect it to impact instead of emotion? Did I reset the standard? Did I stop once the correction was clear? That is the goal. Not a longer correction, a cleaner and clearer one. Because strong leaders do not avoid correction, they make it easier to hear.